Alex, are you going to become such a big media star that you're going to outgrow Glue Guys and then move on? Like,
I can't believe I just told that whole story, Ravi, and you didn't press record. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, that's a fine. I think we should find it. And by the way, I'm the leader. I'm like the leader in the clubhouse.
Yeah, you can find me whatever you guys want, man. I mean, I'm so far in the clear right now. I got to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you. I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you guys.
I was just explaining to Elizabeth like how far in the lead I am in the fine jar, which is like new for me. I've never won this. Like in the QB room, I've never won this. I've never been the leader of fines.
You just totally don't care about
it. Did beg the question, like I'm so far in front of you guys, but when does like the season end?
Alex is going to get hit hard for his behavior because he was actually the one. If you remember, I was actually the one who started out in the bad place on fines. You know, I came 10 minutes late to an early episode.
I think I immediately implemented the fine contest because you were late.
We actually never went over, the most egregious fine in Las Vegas. We're filming.
Have we not aired this yet? We haven't aired this?
I don't think we talked about it.
If you don't know, Glue Guys, we live bi-coastally here, and it's a distributed podcast. But when we are each in each other's hood, we try to get together and break bread and have some communion on air in person. And it's always a great show. And, Ravi, why don't you tell us what happened the first time we tried to get together in Las Vegas?
So Alex had gone through the trouble of and really done a real glue guy thing of finding us a studio that was reasonably priced.
That's right. I do. It was. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was an amazing, and like not done through any outsourced service. Alex was just doing it himself. Found it, and like in order to
also because we don't quite have the capabilities to do it ourselves yet.
Right. Right.
Like that actually us recording in person together was harder than doing it apart.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
Like we needed professional help.
The funny thing is that Shane says we're, distributed. It's like, Alex and I are literally half a mile from each other. It's just that you're 3,000 miles away. But because we wanted, equality on this podcast, then all three of us end up on Zoom or on Riverside. Sorry, shout out to Riverside. Anyway, so Alex finds us the studio. And, 15 minutes before the podcast, he sends a text because I guess he was there early and sends a text to me and Shane being like, hey, like, do I have the right address? Which, by the way, in retrospect, a little bit of a passive aggressive move, being like, where are you guys? Right? I'm at the place. And I think a little bit superior, right, Shane? Like a little bit of superiority there.
To be fair, there were no cars there either and the door was locked. So there was a little, at this point it was starting to kick in. Like I may have messed something up.
Right. But I agree, Shane, a little haughty. And the only thing was he wasn't just 15 minutes early, he was a week early. So Alex is in Las Vegas at the in-person podcast.
Well, I swear, I think Shane texts back. Yeah, Shane texts back like, yeah, that's the right place, but it's next week. And my stomach dropped.
I actually thought he was messing with us. I thought you were messing with us until you sent the picture of we should put that in the show notes. The picture of you in front of Level 9 Studios.
I've never been to Vegas twice in 1 week in my life, and I still can't believe how this happened.
Now, in fairness, you built this pod into a family vacation, so your entire family was there. You brought your boy to come with you to the studio.
I tried to steer it though. Like I knew that you guys. I thought you guys were obviously going to be there the week prior, and I tried to steer it there, and it worked. And it was great. And I brought my buddy. Yep. I'm like telling him about the pod. Come check it out. It's going to be fun hang. Like, hey, we're going to have a live studio audience. My buddy's going to sit there and hang out. Like, this would be great. I drag him there early in the morning, by the way, Vegas. Like, woke him up early, go get coffees. We like get the, Uber over. And it's like, it's fucking 105 degrees at like 9 a.m. I'm sweating already, standing outside this locked door. The door's locked. The lights are off. There's not a car in the parking lot. That's when I sent you guys the text.
And that's when the best part about this was Alex had asked to move the time up a little bit because he's like, well, only works with our family schedule if we do it this time. And then he has to go back, hat in hand, tail between his legs to his family. Why are you back here so quickly? And
Elizabeth was giving me like shit. Like we're on this family vacation. Like, why did you schedule this on the family vacation? And I'm like, I got to do it. It's going to work. We're in person, like Shane just said. And so I go, I mean, it was bad. The walk back into the room, the look on my wife's face. And she's like, why are you here? I 10 minutes later, I'm back in the room and she's like, what the hell are you doing?
The most famous card game in NBA circles on NBA planes, a game called Boo-Ray. Okay. And a very famous term that's called match the pot. All right. You get booed, you get a match the pot. And so that qualifies as a match the pot.
Oh, wow.
Match the pot.
I like that.
That's a big fine. I mean, the biggest, like, obviously, other than just really embarrassing and the fact that I had to book another trip to Vegas the next week is we were supposed to record that day virtually. And I obviously had to just, I wasn't doing that. I didn't have any of my stuff and the studio was locked. So yeah, like, obviously you guys had planned to spend a couple hours hanging and I had to, last minute, we nixed it. So
Alex, you had a very unique walk of shame in Las Vegas, walking back to the room and, telling them. Well, okay. So my fine here was that I didn't have the recording on when you were telling us about the new ESPN show you're doing that I'm wondering, you should tell us again, but I am wondering if that's going to make you into such a big star that you're going to leave the Glue Guys podcast and just kind of go off to bigger media dreams.
Absolutely fucking not. I mean, I just hope it doesn't get me fired. Right? Just hope that I still have a job. No, ESPN. There's been some cuts. So, no, like, dude, yeah, this is new territory for me. I've been doing all these interview features, as I was saying before you pressed record, and flying around talking to all these QBs, which has been awesome, right? Like, these are most of the guys I know, and so it's fun to go to training camps and interview them and do, kind of breaks it up for me and preps me for the season anyway. And as part of this, though, ESPN, and I appreciate this, they have high production value that they want me to go. I have to do all these other things like this are just around the production. Like, they're going to film this full intro for me because this is like my series of things.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I still haven't done that. But this is part of the one I was talking about today is part of this QB room feature because I do think the QB room's fascinating and the dynamic of it. And like, how do you create mentorship? How do you do it the right way? And because certainly it can go sideways, sticking a guy in his replacement in a QB room and can definitely go awry. And, certainly it's been something I constantly get talked about, right, with Patrick and even before that with Cap. And so they had me film this intro though. And I had to play both parts. I had to play the young rookie and I had to play the veteran, but they did it. I was telling you guys, like Nutty Professor style, like Eddie Murphy, like talking to the tennis ball hanging on the other side. So, and as you can see, I cut the beard. So I had like
that's
a full
what I was
beard
going to ask
going.
you. Did they make you shave?
Yeah, I had full beard. They were like, don't cut it. Full beard for the veteran. And I went with like Shane's look. I had the collared shirt and the quarter zip on. I mean, I looked like the Peyton Manning outfit.
One of the Manning brothers.
Yeah, one of the Manning brothers outfit. And, playing the vet and then had to go shave it and play the rookie. So, but no, I'm not a gifted actor at all. So I'm just hope this isn't embarrassing.
What do they think about the salt and the beard for the rookie? It feels, I know you're shaved, but
what are you
going
to do? Yeah. I mean, there was no makeup professional there to like darken it
maybe
up.
Maybe a little like just for men,
I could have brought a razor and shaved it, which I have not done in years. And I look embarrassingly bad like when I do that. So this was just the clippers. And
it's funny. I was thinking of, I don't know how I came across it. I was watching, I think, clips of you and you on your draft day. I mean, clean shaven. You look like you're 12 years old.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. Shane, and I don't know, we should talk about this. I had the longest sideburns you've ever seen because it was the only facial hair I could grow. So I was very conscious that I was such a baby face and I kind of wanted to look older. So I grew these just obnoxious sideburns and they just kept getting longer. Like they started fair and then they kept creeping down. And Shane, when I got drafted, and I don't know if you can relate to this,
what year is this?
This is spring of 2005. It was a terrible time in fashion. Like especially for dress up, like suits, like the baggy Carmelo Anthony suit was still in vogue, but it was like the end of it. And so I wore a jacket.
How many buttons?
Had like 6 buttons on it. Like literally I could make 2 suits out of it. There's so much fabric. Like the pants It was like so obnoxious. And I see these drafts.
Yeah.
Oh, and it just like every time it's an embarrassing time in my life. My wife still gives me grief about it every time she sees it.
What was your suit like at your draft, Shane? Were you Carmelo Anthony suit guy?
Yeah, it was very beige. Beige was in at that point. And I got the caramel skin color. It wasn't my wife's like, it was a horrible color for you. Like I couldn't tell where the suit ended and you began. Like, I still have the suit. I can still fit into my suit. All right, 3 years later. All right, and so I had it custom made. I thought I was sweet. 4 buttons. Okay, and I thought I was sweet. Like I didn't have a suit when I was in college. I literally did not have one suit, and so it was sort of my first suit. And I always kept it for posterity. But that thing was friggin' huge and baggy.
Can you buy a suit off the rack?
I mean, I can go to like XL, but
you really do need a custom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, I grew up before the internet, right? And so growing up, I was in high school when I was 14 years old. I was already 6'6", 6'7". All right. This is before the internet. And so I had to canvass Metro Detroit for shoes that fit me. When I went to Detroit Country Day when I was in 7th grade for the first time, I didn't own a pair of dress shoes. I just never dressed up. And so I had to wear a pair of dress shoes because I had to wear a tie to school every single day. And I'll never forget, we called like 5 different stores. Hey, do you have a size 15 dress shoe? No one had it. And there was one pair of like Oxford brown wingtips that were like an hour and a half away. And we said, save them, we want them. So here I am on the first day of school, the first day I meet my wife, Heidi. I show up to school in these brand new buffed up.
This is 7th grade?
7th grade. Oxford.
You were wearing 15s?
Yes. Wingtip Oxford brown lace ups in 7th grade. I mean,
you think that's what did it for Heidi?
You talk about the swag.
Is that what, do you think Heidi saw that and was just like, I got to marry this guy?
But it was before the internet. Like, no one you couldn't buy anything. You just said you had to go to the store. So yeah. So malls are useless to me.
Shane, Alex grew up in California and is younger than you are, and so grew up with the internet, and he still has a fucking Hotmail address. Okay, so don't feel too bad about growing up before the internet. Alex
it's
still
it's a badge of honor. It's owned by Microsoft. Like, I mean, it's a legitimate email service, Ravi. Okay, like I gotta fucking join the Gmail train.
I did not know it was owned by Microsoft. I actually was meaning to ask you if they actually like allow photographs and videos, if you can actually receive those at your Hotmail address. But I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what kind of, technology they have.
Whatever. I'm just going to own it. Just owning it.
I got you a Gmail address as a gift, if you remember.
You did. But I feel like if I change now, I'm like succumbing to the peer pressure of it all. And at this point in my life, I'm 40 now. Like, fuck it. I don't care.
Okay. I think, Shane, you talking about being a size 15 shoe in the 7th grade is a pretty good segue. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Did you see what he just brought up?
Oh, shit. Where did you get that? Just a flex.
Swag.
Just flexing.
I gotta hide the Yeti. Yeti's not paying for this.
Yeti starts paying, Look at Shane covering up. Well, I was going to say it's a good segue into today's topic, which is learning more about Brother Battier, right? But I have a challenge for us, Alex. I think that the two of us have to prevent Shane from giving us anything that's in his corporate speech as he talks about his life. Because we know all that. We've heard it. We're looking for the real, behind the scenes, true Shane Battier information, not what we can find by going through the speaker bureau and paying for it.
I'm not trying to give away state secrets here for free. We're all capitalists.
Dude, I want to start. Was basketball your first love as a sport? Or were there other sports when you were a kid?
No, baseball.
Baseball?
Yeah.
You were a Tigers fan?
A huge Tiger fan. That's my first memory of life. The 1984 Tigers, World Series champion. I can pretty much name the starting lineup. And I was 6 years old.
You were born in what, 65?
1978. 1978, disco duck, the year of the end of disco, 1978. And my first memory of life, I don't remember anything before the '84 Tigers winning the series against the San Diego Padres and Kirk Bavacqua.
My Padres. So played Little League then, all growing up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I played everything, but I was a really good baseball player.
Were you a pitcher? What position did you play?
I was a pitcher. I was a first baseman. I was always tall. I could hit. I could throw.
I'm envisioning like Randy Johnson on the mound. Is this the right visual now?
Yeah, from 45 feet, I was obviously always the tallest kid. I was throwing straight BBs. I mean, that ball looked like it was on you before you knew
ball
it.
Released like 3 feet later than every other kid.
So like I was pretty good, and I love baseball. And so like baseball was my first love. All I did was watch baseball. Like my favorite show was This Week in Baseball by Mel Allen. You guys don't know about that. Great show, 11 o'clock on Saturdays. But I grew up, but I played basketball. I love basketball. I love football too. I mean, I loved football. I played Little League football, and I just grew up in a family where sports is what you did. I mean, it wasn't like, do you want to play? Like, yeah, we're going to play. We're going to play. So that was, our life was defined by this season of sports: baseball in the spring, basketball in the winter, and football in the fall.
Were your parents, did they play?
My dad was very athletic. My mom was athletic. She didn't play sports, but my dad was, my dad's claim to fame, and he let me know this. He said, I'm the only Battier to score 50 points in a basketball game. And so my dad was in the Army in the 60s, and on his Army-based team in Germany, he scored 50 points. All right. And so unverified, but he let me know, like, look, no matter how good you are, you never score 50 points. And that's true. I never did. So shout out at Battier. But my dad was a hell of a softball player, just an athlete. So my dad was the only black guy in the town we grew up in, Birmingham, Michigan. Right. And so like it just added to this lore that he's this guy who had this like big muscles. He wasn't like a super like tall guy. He was like 6 foot, big muscles, big booming laugh, was the cleanup hitter in softball. And like strong, he could shoot the basketball. So like he was my hero. Like I just wanted to be my dad when I grew up, like everybody kid. He was a lefty, but Fast Eddie B was always a role model. And the cool thing about my dad was like I can't remember a time when he ever said like, I don't have time to throw the football around. I bugged him and I pestered him. Dad, let's go. Will you catch for me? Yeah. Will you rebound for me? Yeah. Will you pitch to me? Yeah. We take it. He was like my personal coach, and I thought every dad was like that. And I just never left him alone. Just pestering him I just wanted to play, and my brother Jeremy and I, we just played. And my dad just never said no. Never, he was always there for us.
He's a lefty. And your son Zeke's a lefty too, right?
Yeah. A family of lefties. Strange.
Skipped a little generation.
My son's a lefty. My dad is lefty. My mom's a lefty.
Oh, wow.
My younger sister's a lefty. My older brother is a lefty. Older sister, I think, is a righty, and then me. And so, I'm an outlier in every sense of the way.
When did you hone in on basketball? When did you specialize?
When I was in 7th grade, I was the kicker and punter. I was little known fact, like we talked about, I was the Andy Reid. I was the Michigan State pump, pass, and kick champion. 1990. I had like a rocket leg and a rocket arm, really good arm. And just at 6 foot, just waylace every other 12-year-old. And so on the Country Day football team, when I first went to Country Day, I was the kicker, obviously. And in middle school, the kickoff squads is the team that made up of players who don't get in the game. Right?
Alex is losing respect for you as we speak. The quarterback is just looking down on you as a kicker.
I'm just picturing Shane kicking off with his size 15 Oxford wingtips.
Well, back in the day, the quarterbacks were the punters too.
Yeah, they were.
Old school, right?
Yes.
D.A. Lane. I mean, he was punter too. And so I kicked off and I ran down the field and the kid cut back. And this is the first play of the game. And one of the slow offensive linemen on the kickoff team was in my way. He tripped and fell right on my knee. And I'm like, damn, this really hurts. And so I'd never gotten hurt before. And so I played the entire game on this leg. I caught a touchdown pass after the game. This is back like 1990, so or 91. And so the coach is like, man, you got a shiner. Just keep bending it. Keep bending it. Keep it loose. So I'm sitting there bending it. I'm like, man, it really hurts. So after the game, cut touchdown pass. We win the game. I go to the doctor and x-rayed it, and like, man, you got a broken tibia.
What?
So, when Brother Smith talks about his injury, obviously it's a lot worse.
You had a fractured tibia?
Fractured tibia. I played the entire game, caught touchdown pass, and that was
What?
the end. That was the end of my football career. They put a full cast on my leg. I think I was the last person to ever get a full leg cast. And here I am. This is like the third week of school. So I'm the new kid. And I got these size 15 Oxford, wingtips, awkward enough. And now I got a full leg cast on. And that was the end. And the funny thing, the thing that pissed me off the most was the year before that, in sixth grade, pump, pass, and kick was not a state champ. Was not a national tournament. All right. When I was in seventh grade, it was the first year that the winner got to go to the Pro Bowl in Hawaii.
You had your eyes on a national title.
Oh, it was done. It was done. And I was so freaking pissed. I was so pissed when I broke my leg. And it was after the first round of the competition. I'm like, screw it. I'm competing. And so I went out there in the second round of the pump, pass, and kick with a full leg cast on and still got it and kicked and threw. And I beat a kid. And so that might be my greatest athletic achievement. That's how insane I was. I was insane, and I didn't care, and I didn't care about pain. And I'm like, screw it. I love to compete. I'm going to go after it. So that sums up a story that I still competed in a full leg cast, which is ridiculous.
Okay, that's the time you start specializing. You go straight basketball. Just before we get into that, though, were you always doing well in school too? Were you always studious, always focused?
Very. Look, I always had books in my house. We didn't have much, right? But my parents always made sure I had books in the house, and I was kind of the annoying kid. I was like the perfect kid. I never had to be told to study, go to sleep, eat my vegetables. I just did everything, because I just wanted to honor my parents, and I didn't want to give them any grief. I knew they had a tough time in the real world, and so you know what? I'm going to be as low maintenance as possible and just do what I'm supposed to do. All right, and that's just who I was, and it wasn't like an act, but that was just really out of love. And so,
was there a drive to do well in school because it's also whatever you wanted to become at that point, wherever you wanted to do? I mean, was it?
Yeah, well, I was going to be a major league baseball pitcher, and so at that point, but yeah, I love learning. I've always been a super curious person, and so that drove me to always do well in school. But it was really just trying to honor my parents and not try to rock the boat and kick ass. I grew up as the only mixed kid in my town. Like, I was the only kid with a black dad and a white mom. And it was really hard. It was really, really hard. I had no role models. I didn't feel my parents could understand. I didn't feel anyone could understand what I went through and the fact that no matter where I went, I never fit in. Right. Literally. And so in a lot of ways, sports and at recess, that was my time to be no, dude, you're going to respect me because I'm going to kick your ass.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, and I did it smiling. It wasn't malicious, but no, you're going to let me in. And so in the classroom, it was sort of the same thing. No, you're going to respect me because I'm going to get straight A's and I'm going to make you respect me. And so super highly competitive person. It didn't matter what we were doing. I was going to try to beat you. And that was the defining force of my entire childhood.
So then when did you start running with basketball? You still wanted to be a major league pitcher. When did you when did basketball become your thing? I mean, obviously you were by your senior year, you were, right? I mean, offered by everybody, presumably.
Yeah. Well, funny thing happens when you're 6 foot in sixth grade and 6'4" in seventh grade and 6'8" the first day of eighth grade. You're like, I love baseball, and I played baseball in high school actually still. I said, but I think this is basketball. I think it's basketball, and I love basketball, and I was always very good, very talented, and a great shot blocker, great defensive player. But after I got hurt, my mom's like, "You're not playing football anymore." I knew I couldn't play football anymore, but I knew it was pretty. It was basketball. Look, we talk about different paths. I never thought what I did was particularly impressive. When you're you're young in basketball and you're tall and kind of coordinated, naturally, like you just have a huge advantage, you know?
Yeah.
And so the first time I remember seeing my name in Hoop Scoop magazine, which is like this rag on
Hoop
like an
Scoop
early
magazine.
recruiting rag. And I was rated the number fourth, seventh grader in the country. That was weird. Just to see my name and have someone really for the
Had
first
you
time.
been going to
outside
like national tournaments though? Like, did you know you were like dominating
Yeah,
kids
like
at
how
this
did they
point?
know your name?
Yeah, I played AAU. So I played like these AAU tournaments. When I was 13 years old, I went to San Antonio for the first time, played the AAU national championships, and I played pretty well. But like, again, I wasn't like, I didn't feel like I was like dominating to a level where like this kid is like a future pro. I'm like, yeah, but it was like what I had done all my life. I blocked a lot of shots. I grabbed a lot of rebounds and I scored, you know? So for me, it was like, it wasn't a big deal. I was like, this is what we do. No big deal.
When was the first time you thought maybe you'd be a pro? Because Alex, one of the things I was struck by in his is sort of like not until effectively like a few weeks before he's drafted does he believe that he might be a pro. When was the first time you were like, "Man, maybe this is possible"?
When I was in high school, growing up in Detroit, I used to run with the Detroit Pistons. I used to get in their pickup games. And
What?
yeah,
Really?
yeah. When you're from Detroit, you go to a place called St. Cecilia. St. Cecilia's was like, it's kind of like Detroit's Rucker Park. All right. If you're anybody, you go through the Saint. All right. And there's like, 2 inches from the sideline to the wall. It's a tough game. All right. You got to be a dude. And, I played against, Allen Houston when I was in high school, Grant Hill, like all these like Pistons. And like, I didn't get embarrassed. Like I held my own.
Really? As a 15, 16-year-old kid, you're playing.
Yeah. And so it wasn't a big deal. I was never intimidated by NBA guys. It was just it's what you did. Like if you're a good player, you scour Detroit for the best runs.
Is that culture in basketball just in general still? Like when you were playing pro later, would great high school players come in the off season and like pick up games? Like,
oh yeah,
I do feel like that's a bigger part of basketball.
Huh.
Yeah. The beauty of basketball is like, look, if you can play, you can play.
Yeah.
We don't care where you're from. We don't care what your background is. If you got game, all right, step up. I want you on my team. And there's the purity of basketball, and that's why I love it so much. But yeah, like it sounds weird, like saying it now. Like, yeah, I was 15 years old, and I'm going up against like Lindsey Hunter and Allen Houston and Don Reed and Jerome Williams and all these like guys in the NBA, and I wasn't getting my ass kicked. And I was scoring a few baskets, and I was blocking some shots, and look, it's summer league, so they're not playing like it's an NBA playoff game.
Yeah, you're still going back to your AAU in high school and just like absolutely crushing high school kids at this point. I mean, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I knew like physically I could hang. Physically, I knew I could hang. I was 6'8", so like, And then I also, a life-changing thing for me was I used to be a ball boy for the Detroit Pistons in the summer. When the players were back working out, I used to like mop floors and wash jock straps and make Gatorade shakes. And, when they were done working on it, I got to work out at the Palace with the Pistons strength coach. And like, I looked at those guys and I was never intimidated by them. I'm like, this is what it means to be an NBA player. Like, I can do this. They're working hard, but like, they're not doing something I haven't done in drill work before. They're just like older and stronger and like more skilled. But like, and so like being able to see that, being around that every single day, I looked at myself as like, I'm a pro right now. And that was my mentality. Like, even though I'm in high school, like I'm going to be a professional high school basketball player.
But dude, this is what I was going to ask you. I'm starting to interrupt, but like, it is exactly what was on my mind. Like were you ever like a kid? Because what I was thinking about is like, I feel like when you're like, early, you're like, man, my parents have a lot going on. They have difficulty outside of the house. I'm going to be easy. Right. And I'm going to like work hard and I'm going to, not be trouble. You're in high school and you're like, oh, I'm a professional high school, basketball player. But like, there's no part of that where you're just like a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so where is that?
You met your wife in 7th grade.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
No,
you met your wife in 7th grade, but
my wife dumped me because I was too serious. to your point, I met my wife Heidi in 9th grade or 7th grade. We dated in 9th and 10th grade, and she dumped me at the end of 10th grade. She's like, "You're too serious. I want to have fun. I want to go to parties and hang out." And I'm like, "I want to go to the gym."
I thought she dumped you for the quarterback. I didn't realize that she dumped you. Because you were too serious.
That too. I won. All right, I won. But look, I had fun, but like fun for me was very different definition than most 16 and 17 years old, right? When I was 13 years old, I was getting probably 20, 25 pieces of mail a day from college coaches.
That was legal,
right? Yeah, back in the day, you could send a note. So like my dad used to carry on this huge, but I just threw it out like 2 years ago, like thousands of letters from every college. So like I'm thinking about college when I'm 13 years old. Like I'm not thinking about like I want to go to the mall and hang out. I'm thinking like, oh man, like where am I going to play? And so I grew up very fit. I was always mature, but like, did I have fun? Yes. Was my idea of fun different? Yes. Did I make up for it when I, finally got to the league and had some money? Absolutely. All right.
Miami,
I'm way more
baby.
fun now.
Miami.
Way more fun
Even
now.
He was drafted in Memphis.
That's right.
Way more fun now than I was. But like, again, I burn the ships. We talk about like commitment.
Yeah.
I absolutely friggin' burned the I was either going to die or I was going to the league. And there was no in between.
During high school, who were your basketball idols at that point? And or even like college program was like Duke? Was Duke even good? Had they become Duke yet?
Well, I hated Duke.
I mean, Michigan, what the hell? Like, come on.
No, true story. I hated Duke. I loved UNLV. I was heartbroken. I didn't like Christian Laettner. I didn't like Bobby Hurley. Heartbroken that UNLV beat Duke in the 91 NCAA Final Four.
No, we beat UNLV. That we beat UNLV. Heartbroken that Duke beat UNLV. You said the opposite.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no,
that's right.
I was happy the year before when UNLV blew them out, but I was heartbroken when Duke got revenge.
79-77, Alex. That's the game.
The fucking score.
I was a Michigan guy. I was a Fab Five guy, and ironically, I went to the same high school as Chris Webber, and Chris, one of the greatest players ever to come out of Michigan, and so when I was young, like. In 9th grade, I'm 6'8", so everyone wanted to compare me to Weber, right? And Weber was just like this beast. I mean, like 240 pounds, dunking everybody. Like that wasn't my game. Like I was a great shot blocker. I was like finesse, and so I felt the weight of like the comparisons.
Were you wearing the long shorts though? At that point, were you wearing the super long Michigan shorts?
I had no swag. I still have no swag. Like my son laughs at me. He's like, "You have no swag, Dad. You never wore anything." That gives you swag.
You had swag in that Pete commercial.
Although I did wear a headband in high school. It's a true story. I was a sweater, and this is like 95. And I'm like, I'm going to wear a headband. And no one wore a headband in 95. Nobody. And people were killing me for, Battier, take that headband off. You think it's the 70s? People were crushing me back in the mid-90s for wearing a headband.
You were fashion forward.
I go to Duke. Coach K says, you can't wear a headband. And wouldn't you know it, now every clown has a headband. I was ahead of the curve. And, I get no credit for that. But going back to Country Day, so I was lucky to play for a coach, Coach Keener, who had been through the highest level of recruitment and this craziness with Chris the first time. And so Coach Keener was amazing mentor, an amazing coach, and the perfect coach for me. He said, you got to be yourself, man. You don't have to be like Chris. You just have to be the best Shane you can be. And I promise you, that's going to be good enough.
What a gift.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, Unbelievable. And so I was able to play with Chris's brothers who were awesome, Jason and David, who were close friends. And I just had a really, really great high school experience around, great teammates. We won 3 state titles, nationally ranked. And it was I couldn't have gone to a better place from a competitive standpoint, but just from a growth standpoint.
So what changed? So you don't like Duke early, right? You're getting called by everybody. I would have thought, like Alex said, that the baseline would be maybe you go to Michigan, but maybe it's you didn't want to be like Weber. Like what was it where were you deciding between why Duke?
Michigan was in a little bit of trouble by the time I was coming up. And I was in 7th grade when the Fab Five were freshmen, and there were rumors that were abound, I guess you could say, in southeastern Michigan about what was going on in the program at the time. Now it'd be a totally legal game,
As
it'd
it
be
should
cool,
be.
but like, back in the 90s, it was illegal. And so by the time I was a senior, I knew that the NCAA was on Michigan's case. I wanted to play for national championships. I wanted to play for something big. And so Michigan was never an option. I'll tell this story. Tom Izzo had just gotten to Michigan State, and I love Coach Izzo. He's an awesome leader and obviously unbelievable basketball coach. And I tell I'm like, hey man, like he was on me hard. He hadn't got a great big recruit yet. I was going to be his first, and he messed up the day he told me. He's like, man, we got the best weight staff in the Big Ten. We're going to put 40 pounds of muscle on you, and you're going to be the toughest motherfucking power forward in the Big Ten. And I got Coach K and Dean Smith saying, "No, man, like you're a small forward, man. You got to shoot threes." I'm like, I'm of those guys. All right, I'm going Tobacco Road. All right, sorry, coaches. So I tell Izzo that he messed up that day, but look, I had a coach, my AU coach, and he's like, "Man, you're like Grant Hill, man. You got to be like Grant Hill." And for the first time, I looked at Grant Hill. I'm like, man, Grant Hill's so sweet, man. I do want to be Grant Hill. So, like,
you wanted to wear FIFA.
Huh? Oh, Fila.
I mean, yeah, sorry.
I like Grant Hill to me is like, he's like Jesus Christ, man. Like he's like so good looking and smart and successful. And the fact that I could like call him into my phone, like still, I'm like, that's the one guy. And the fact that like, I know him and I consider him a good friend. So once I made the decision that I wanted to be Grant Hill, it was Duke and everybody else. And Grant, got drafted by Detroit. And so he knew me in high school and he told me like, look, dude, I got 2 titles. I don't care where you go. All right. If you go somewhere else, Duke's going to beat your ass. You may as well just go to Duke.
That was his recruiting pitch?
Yes.
That's a great pitch.
The old reverse psychology.
No, it's a try. I mean, I get why you went there. No, I'm not mad. I mean, shit, dude, Grant Hill's calling you up when you're in high school and like,
Yeah.
So when your idol tells you, I don't give a shit where you go, we're gonna beat your ass regardless. All right, you're like, all right, I'm gonna show you. And so
that's awesome.
So I enjoy my conversations with Grant now, letting him know that from a statistical and analytical standpoint, we have the greatest teams from Duke all time. So that's my revenge.
I do think that's like I'm like putting that in the memory bank of the way for him to recruit you was that. Right. It's not the same note every time. It's like, okay, on this guy, like we are excellent. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to be excellent with or without you. But like the pitch is, do you think you're excellent or not? You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
I mean, I'm sure Jobs did that. I mean, the best people do that. When you got that swag and you can do that and you can recruit the best. Yeah, go ahead.
This is legendary. Like Steve Spurrier. Remember like his run at Florida when they were like a behemoth? And everybody like kowtows to the top recruits, right? Like you're kind of just kissing their ass, you know, like, hey, come here, whatever you want. You're trying to like, kind of butter them up. And Steve Spurrier, like the old ball coach, was just like legendary. Like you came on a trip and he'd say, hey, you want to be a Gator? And he'd offer them right then. And if they didn't turn it down, he'd be like, that's fine. We'll find somebody else who wants to be a Gator and like, we'll kick your ass, if you don't want to come here, kind of thing. Like, it was like same thing, like very much kind of take it or leave it. Yeah. We're the shit. And if you want to come here, great. But if not, like, that's fine. And, like kind of no big deal. And I think it's funny, like by not pursuing them that hard, like it actually drew all the great talent. You're like, shit, he's not, this guy's not kissing my ass like everybody else. And it kind of was like made him an outlier. And that
was Coach K. Coach K gave me a very, very similar speech. And he said, look, came into my living room and he said, Shane, I'm not going to promise you playing time. I'm not going to promise you shots. I'm not going to promise you're going to start. I'm only going to promise you one thing, the opportunity to earn playing time every single day in practice. And if you're good enough, you'll play. I said, you're talking to me. You're talking to me, coach. All right. Oh, I'm going to play. I don't know about Trajan Langdon. I don't know about Elton Brand. I don't know about anybody else you recruit. I don't care. When the dust settles, I'm going to be there. And so, I mean, we talk about what makes great leadership, and that was Coach K. Coach K knew me in high school that I was a psycho competitor. And like, that was my button. It wasn't kissing my ass and telling me how great I was. I didn't care about that. It was, I'm going to challenge you to be great. And maybe you can make it, maybe you can't. I'm like, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. You're going to talk about me like you never talked about anyone before. And he had me hook, line, and sinker because he knew that little fact.
I think that is like something people completely miss in any sort of recruiting or leadership in general, right? They just go and run the play. And it's like, no, you have to, change it for each person. And then I really love this idea of like, we have created something that's going to be excellent with or without you. It's going to be easier with you, sure. But like, no matter what, we're going to be great. By the way, Shane, can you tell the story of just before you get to like the Duke part of when you were recruited and the 15-minute window you gave to people? I just think it's this ridiculous story that you've told me in the past of like how you set the boundaries. It's crazy.
Yeah. Alex, you'll appreciate this. So like in high school recruiting, it's a little more organized now, but back, when I was recruited in the late 90s, it was just a shit show. And you have coaches calling it every hour of the night, just trying to find you, just trying to get you on the phone, just to connect. And so I wanted my time. I didn't want to be tied down, and distracted from my schoolwork and my basketball. And so I had my list of 6 schools. It was Michigan, Michigan State, Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, and Kentucky. And I went by alphabetical order. And every Monday night, I said, Coach K, your window is from 8 to 8:15. I will be there, and I will be all yours. All right, Coach Izzo, you're from 8:15 to 8:30. And I went down the list. Okay?
Shut the hell up.
And this is
Think about how crazy this is.
This is how psycho I was.
He's 17.
I was psycho. And so like the coaches appreciated it. Like they liked it because they knew I was going to be there. They knew like they didn't have to talk about nonsense, and they moved on. So like it was a win-win. I loved it. And I'll never forget Rick Pitino at Kentucky called me outside of his window one time. And he called me from Yankee Stadium. He's like, "Yeah, we're at the World Series. I'm in Steinbrenner's box, and I just wanted to holler at you and just connect, say how you doing." It was like a Wednesday night. I said, "Coach, man, it's great to hear from you, man. I'm thank you for calling. It's have fun. Go Yankees. I'll talk to you later." Click. I hung up. I said, "Mom, take Kentucky off the list. If that guy doesn't respect my rules, he's not going to respect me if I go there. Take him off." So Kentucky was off the ship after one phone call, and no one else.
Holy shit!
No one else broke the rules, but that's
you're like the most disciplined 17-year-old I've ever heard of. Like every other kid would be like loving the attention. Yes, call me. Like, oh, these coaches want me.
Yes.
Shit.
It's just so different. But then, Alex, can I tell you the other thing that's happened? Our boy, brother Battier, has really mellowed out. I mean, can you imagine? He should have been kicking your ass off the podcast for showing up 12 minutes late. I mean, you're outside the window. You're breaking the rule.
He's gotten soft.
He's gotten really evolved in his old age.
Well, when you live in South Florida that long, you get a little soft. You know what I'm saying?
He's lost the assembly line mentality.
Detroit has been, that was a long time ago.
Long time ago. Detroit against the world forever. You never lose that gene, Alex. You never lose
and these
that
guys,
gene.
These coaches called every week?
Yeah.
God,
Monday night on their window. And, said their piece. And look, again, I don't know where that came from, but when I decided to go to Duke, it was important for me to call each coach and tell them that I appreciated their recruitment of me, and I have a lot of respect for them. But I've chosen not to go to their school. And most of the coaches were super classy. Tom Izzo was amazingly classy. Roy Williams was awesome at Kansas.
Which call was the hardest?
Dean Smith. That was the hardest. Coach
What
Smith.
Did he say?
Ironically, he let me off the hook the easiest. I tell this story, and it was pretty funny. So, like, I'm super nervous. I had the press conference to announce I'm going to Duke, like right after this. So, this is the last thing I'm doing before I go on stage and put the hat on. I'm going to Duke, and I give the speech. Coach Smith, thank you so much. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you and your program. And it's true. If I didn't go to Duke, I would have gone to Carolina, which is like the irony. Everyone thinks I hate Carolina. No, I would have gone to Carolina if I didn't go to Duke. But Duke was the answer. And so I said, Coach, thanks, but I'm going somewhere else. But, best of luck. Look forward to competing against you. And there was like silence. And he says, all right, good luck, and hangs up. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I in trouble? I felt like I did something like my grandpa or something. But like, I told that story and it got back to him, and he wrote me like the nicest letter afterwards. And he's like, no, I didn't mean to be abrupt. I was distracted that day, but he wrote me a super, super nice letter. So, a major props to Coach Smith and the Carolina program. We still beat their ass, but I respect them.
This is very nerdy for me, but what was Coach Smith's recruiting pitch? If Coach K's was, I'm not going to promise you this, I'm not going to promise you this, what was the UNC recruiting pitch under Dean Smith? Because he's like such a legend, right? What did he say?
Very different. Where Coach K's was rooted in competition and like survival of the fittest, Coach Smith's recruiting pitch was entirely about family. And that was the thing about the Carolina program, to that point. You ask anyone from Michael Jordan to James Worthy to Vince Carter, like once you were part of the Carolina family, it was forever. I mean, Coach Smith had
your favorite word, the F word.
It was, but it was real. It wasn't hokey, like fake family. It was real. Like in his will, he left Coach Smith, when he passed away, left every player $100 that ever played for him and said, please take your wife out on me. Right?
Oh,
that's pretty
cool.
amazing.
Amazing.
That's
very
player
cool.
that played for
Super
him.
cool.
Just take your wife out one last time on me. And like that was the Carolina program. And then that was what the appeal was, to be part of that fraternity. The ironic part was that at the time, everyone's like, man, like don't go to Duke. Like Duke doesn't have any pros. Like Christian Laettner flamed out, Bobby Hurley flamed out, Danny Ferry, all these guys like flamed out. And so like Carolina had like the roster, Jordan and Worthy and all these guys. And like, man, Carolina produces pros. Duke doesn't produce pros. Well, you fast forward, 25 years later, Duke of Kentucky has like the most pros by like miles. And everyone's saying, oh, Carolina doesn't produce pros. You got to go to Duke if you want to be a pro. So like, I knew that. I wanted to be part of that change. And, I think I made the right choice.
The list of college coaches you've just rattled off that were like calling you weekly is absurd. I mean, did you just hear those names? That is like,
it's absurd. Just like murderers.
It's like Mount Rushmore of college basketball. Holy smokes.
But you know what, Alex? I was not intimidated because like this is what I work for. And like I was never surprised by my success because I always thought it was just part of the plan. Right? And so when I have Roy Williams calling me, yeah, of course. Like, yeah, he's kind of supposed to call me. Not like, oh, look, I'm so great. And like Roy Williams calling me, but like, oh yeah, okay, this makes total sense. It's totally logical and part of the plan. I'm on my way to the NBA. And you talk about irrational confidence all the time. Like I didn't know anything else. And it wasn't like an arrogance. I was not a cocky player or like an overconfident person by any means. I just believe like, yeah, this is just the route that I'm supposed to be on. And
okay, when was the first moment? Maybe it was at Duke. Maybe it wasn't until you became a pro of kind of like a little bit, maybe some doubt in there, maybe a little humble pie. Like, was there a moment like, like, oh shit, maybe I'm not all that.
Yeah.
Like these guys are good too.
Probably Midnight Madness. Midnight Madness, the first time, Dick Vitale's at Duke.
What's Midnight Madness?
It's the first open
you
practice.
Fucking Duke guys, dude.
Now everyone does Midnight Madness. Everyone's got, games now, but this was like the first practice of the year. And
You're
like
freshman?
Cameron was as a freshman. So like Cameron's sold out. So number one team in the country, Wojo's back, Trajan Langdon, number one team in the country. And Dick Vitale's there. And I'll never forget talking to my fellow freshman, Chris Burgess. And I'm just like, holy shit. Like, can you believe this? And it was the first time, like when you're in Cameron for the first time and it's full and like they're there to see you, it's intimidating. And I was just like, wow. And we I had been through the preseason training and I'd played. So I knew I belonged, but it's funny, like, we talk about like narrative, and I had like one of the best preseasons I ever had, like on any level before that freshman year, because I was so scared that I wasn't going to be good enough. So I came in the best shape ever. I was like cut up. I was like, and I kicked everybody's butt, like for the preseason scrimmages. And a funny thing happened when the real season started. I fell back into a very passive, subservient role because I thought it was not my time to be that guy.
As a freshman.
And so even though I was scoring points and doing all this stuff, I did not want the focus to be on me my freshman year. And so I never shot. And I just like did all the dirty glue guy plays that I became famous for. But like, that's all I focused on. Playing great defense, diving for every loose ball, taking charges, like doing all the grunt work, because I knew like that was my best way. I thought in my mind, like that was the best way to get playing time, not like necessarily scoring, but I was like scoring like a ton. But like, so when I got into the regular season, like I scored a little bit, but like I didn't show anything that my teammates saw when I first got to campus when I was playing the best of my career.
Okay. So that's the first time the self-doubt comes. Midnight Madness, you kind of solve it, I guess, by working harder, being a glue guy, right? Then after freshman year, what happens then?
So I have a great freshman year. I think I make all defensive team. I started majority of the year. Elton Brand, became the number one pick in the draft. A year later, broke his foot, and so I slid in. I was the center of that year. So I was guarding guys way, way bigger than me. We had a fantastic year. Finished the year number one in the country, number one seed. We drop a 18-point second half lead to Kentucky in the regional final. We should have gone to the Final Four, and we lose. All right. So we come back the next year for our sophomore year, and again, number one team in the country. But we know we have a real stick this year, like real. Like when we got on campus, it was like, okay, this is going to be a no doubt year. When you're at Duke, look, you go to Duke to play for championships, right? So you're not like wowed by expectations. You're not wowed by beating Carolina. You're very steady. And I'm sure Urban had this same mentality. It's just like, okay, what's next? What's next? And that's the thing Coach K always talks about: next play. The cool thing about Duke was that there was a tradition. Okay. And when I got to campus, it was Trajan Langdon, it was Steve Wojciechowski, it was Rashawn McLeod, the upperclassmen who taught me what it meant to be a Duke guy. Okay. And when you're young and a freshman, you think but you have no idea when you go to as esteemed of a program like Duke. And I'll never forget, like my freshman year, I was very slow and I hated doing wind sprints. Okay. Even though I was in great shape. One day before preseason conditioning, I'm walking over to the conditioning and I go, oh man, I hate sprints. I hate running 17 across, which is the hardest thing in basketball. And Wojo stopped, turned around and looked at me and said, you know what I hate? Losing. And then turned back around and we kept on walking. I'm like, oh shit. Like I felt about 2 inches tall. And I learned, hey, to be a Duke man, you don't complain. You just do the work. Right. And it's kind of like, we talk about leadership, we talk about, the strong leader from the coaching position or the CEO position. I had such strong leaders from the upperclassmen that taught me how to work, how to be strong, how to be resilient, right? And there were spoken things and there were unspoken things that you just pick up on how really, really successful veteran guys act. I'm sure.
What were some of the unspoken things, Shane?
Just like Trajan Langdon just iced his knees after every practice. And like, no one told him to ice his knees. And so I asked him one day, why you ice your knees? He's like, because it gives you longevity. And so like, again, it's those unspoken things that like, okay, so I'm going to ice my knees. I'm going to be like Trajan Langdon. So like for the rest of my career, I ice my knees after every practice and every game. Right. And so like, yeah, if it works for Trajan's awesome. Like I'm going to do that. Right.
When you went back to Duke, like years later, even obviously throughout Coach K's run, were there those traditions that you talk about, like that ethic, the culture that obviously is getting handed down kind of upperclassmen to, lowerclassmen, and that cycle keeps rolling, right? Were there traits and characteristics that like were identifiable that like when you were there? I mean, obviously Coach K is still the head coach, but like those things you're talking about, like that kind of got handed down.
I think part of the reason why Coach K retired, because it was harder to have those lessons. And think about it. He used to have guys for 3 or 4 years. And it's really hard to compress 4 years of lessons into 1 year.
I didn't think about that.
Less than that, because these guys are leaving, the spring of their freshman year. And so look, if you played under Coach K, we talk about the brotherhood, and there's always like, man, that was the hardest shit we've ever done. And none of us would want to do it again. But it's almost like going through basic training. Like, no, it's a badge of honor that we went through Duke and played under Coach K. And we're going to have him as a guest, at some point. But a huge badge of honor that, like, this is the hardest thing that any of us have ever done on the basketball court, and off the basketball court, really, to get through, and the mental energy it takes and the physical pain that it takes to be great and come out the other side. And so,
harder than the pros, Shane?
That's the bond.
Harder than the pros?
Yeah.
He just seems like such a nice guy.
The mental attention to detail, every single day, exhausting. We talk about, like, what are you willing to do to be great? Most people will do their best when it feels good and it's a good day. It's the days you feel shitty, the days you're tired, the day you didn't get sleep, the day you're sore. What are you doing on those days to attune your habits, to get a little better, right? To still execute, right? Because no one cares. No one cares. Do you execute or do you not execute? Do you give effort? Do you not give effort? Do you give mental effort? Do you not give mental effort? And so you just learn to do all these things. It's very militaristic, right? And obviously Coach K played at West Point, and being in the Army, like any soldier you talk to, that's what you do. It's like, it doesn't matter if I'm hurt or if I am, in your rehab, Alex. Like, no, you do the job because that's the job to do, right? And so the training, but to learn that is not for everybody. you got to be different to take to that.
It's relentless. Same
relentless.
word. Relentless.
Yeah, every day.
Yeah,
so,
ahead,
Shane, you obviously have a ton of success in high school, ridiculous college career, absurd, one of a kind. You're number 2 on the list, right? Is that 2? You're second on the all-time list?
On some list.
I just wanted to check.
But number 1 on the 4-year players.
Number 1
4 the 4-year guys.
Yeah.
But then you get drafted 6 overall, but is this kind of the first time? I mean, those teams weren't very good, right? Those Memphis teams.
So here's a stat for you. Here's a stat. So when I graduated, my teams at Duke went 133-15, which is a record for a 4-year period. No one won more games in a 4-year period. With respect to other people.
I hope in the show note that they show, when they include.
What's his name again? I got to remember his name. What's his name?
The Gonzaga guy.
Yeah.
No one ever won more games in a 4-year period.
He doesn't want to say it.
Okay.
Alex, when Shane gets mad, his lip curls a little bit right here when he's annoyed, and so you just saw it a little bit coming out.
Respect those guys. Respect that program. Mark Few, hell of a coach. But I got drafted by the Memphis Grizzlies, who at the time had just moved from Vancouver when I was a rookie, and they had the lowest winning percentage of the 4 North American sports: so NHL, MLB, NBA, NFL. So literally the worst franchise in North America, right? And it showed. I show up on the first day of conditioning. And again, I think I'm back at Duke. And so I come in the best shape of my life. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the NBA. These are the greatest athletes of all, like, in the world. I got to be in world-class shape. So our test was 1 mile run, 1 mile run, 4 trips around the track, okay, at Rhodes College. And I take off. I'm not super fast, but like I take off. The only guy who was beating me was Michael Dickerson, who was a freak athlete, and he runs like a 4:45 mile, whatever, just takes off. So I run my 5:10 mile, 5:15 mile, whatever it was, and along the way I lapped 4 of my teammates, and those 4 teammates, I'm not going to name names, they were unable to finish a mile run. Okay. So you think about
pro athletes
could not do outrageous. A mile run. And so, of course, I do the Duke thing. I go back and I have one of my teammates, arm around me. I'm like, come on, man, we got to finish. We got to do it. And they're looking at me like, man, get the hell away from me, And so, like, I saw on my first day of my new life, I'm like, what is this? And I saw why it was such a horrible culture, and like why, like the lack of professionalism, the lack of attention to detail, the lack of resilience. And like, I saw that, and we got our heads kicked in like bad. You know, I lost more games by December than I had in 4 years at Duke. Right. And so I had to grow up very, very quickly, and learn to stay positive in a situation I wasn't used to.
Was there attitude by those veterans that you were like a tryhard?
It was bad. So like there were days when I'll never forget, we had the ubiquitous team meeting, no coaches, and I hate those meetings because there's a bunch of locker room lawyers, nothing productive, locker room lawyers. And so I state my piece. I stand up, I say, hey guys, like we have a very young team. You know, Pau Gasol just got off the boat, you know, literally from Spain, you know, a couple weeks ago. Doesn't speak much English, a hell of a player, but I'm like, we got a bunch of young guys here. Like, we need your voice. Like I'm used to like Trajan Langdon and Steve Wojciechowski and Rashawn McLeod, like taking me under their wing and like teaching me how to be a pro. And they look at me and say, hey, Duke boy, shut the fuck up. Like you got to learn on your own, like we did. And it was just like anti-glue guy. It was like anti
pro sports.
It was like everything like I learned at Duke, but like the opposite. And so I learned, like, look, I can't come in here guns a-blazing and just say like, hey, you know, this is how we win, right? I had to like learn how to build credibility, and I had to learn to show these guys that, look, I'm not trying to put one over on you. I'm not trying to get you fired. I'm here to help. I've done that my entire career, and I've won, and losing sucks. But the only way we can do it is like, we got to do it together, as corny as that sounds. And so that was the aha, welcome to the NBA moment internally that I had to learn.
This is just an aside, but I was thinking about this. It's weird that it's very different in pro sports. If you're really good, you end up on a really bad team, right? Definitionally, you know, through the draft. You think about in like regular business, if you're really good, you actually end up on a really good team, right? And you have, as a young person, you have all these people teaching you. You have role models inside your organization. Like when I left school, I went to McKinsey, right? Like all of a sudden, there's all these people you can learn from. And the only time you actually end up at a team where you need to learn more, that's not as high performing at the time you go, is later in your career, right? You have to like you go there and you're already. It's the first time you're going somewhere else where you have to play that role, but like. It happens when you're 30, 35, 40. You guys, it's happening at 20 or 21. It's like a very bizarre and different thing, you know?
For sure. You know, like you said it, like if you're coming out of Harvard Law, you're going to the best law firm in the country. Like you pick your litter. You come out of these MBA programs, like Ivy League, like you're picking where you want to go work. You're demanding your comp, right? Like, and you're getting the most fucked up part about this whole thing is like, what do you think the Duke basketball program is worth from a value standpoint? I mean, it's a little NBA team, right? Like that, like honestly, from a monetary standpoint, like it's a huge fucking name. We just said this, like you played for free.
Yeah.
Like you played for free labor. Like that's messed up. And then when you wanted to finally had the chance to go play professionally and make a living, they told you where you had to go and work, and you were a slotted salary. Like that's fucked up. That's like, it's so un-American.
On a bad team.
It's dude, like, so like, this is like the Jamar Chase thing right now. He's holding out of the Bengals. And I'm like, think about how long this guy's been underpaid. Like the LSU program, it's fucking enormous. He won them a national championship for free, right? Then he gets the second or third pick overall, or, you know, like, and they tell him where to go and a slotted salary, which he's outperformed. And finally he's like demanding more money, which good for him. And then like people are upset about it. I'm like, what? What the?
Yeah, no. I mean, like Alex, like to your point, I should have paid McKinsey for my first job. Easy.
Yeah.
Right? Because like they're just teaching me. I mean, the fact that I got paid at all is, you know, incredible. And you just, it's totally different. It's almost like you basically get turned into a grown-up in a hurry, right? All of a sudden, like it's just, you're just dumped in. You guys have said this, like the mentorship is an anomaly if it exists, right? And all of a sudden you're just like in. And
but man, Robbie, the lessons I learned from that, invaluable.
Yeah.
Right.
No, but Shane, to your point, like you have, you had the paint. you
Yeah,
know,
but
and
like,
that's where the good stuff comes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Our boy, David Sendra. What do you say?
Yeah.
Excellence is
Excellence is the capacity to take pain.
yeah.
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 Episode 184, Founders. Check it out.
Unbelievable.
Isidore
And
Sharp.
so I agree with you, Alex. It's a crazy, crazy system. But if you make it to the other side, most guys don't make it through. Right. But again, if you make it to the other side, man, you are galvanized. There isn't anything you can't do. Right. And you will be compensated for that. Right. And like that's probably the hardest, most difficult thing as a glue guy when I do these corporate speeches, not to get corporate speechy on you, but people are so worried that I'm not going to be seen. I'm going to fall through the cracks. And so I don't have incentive to do these things to help my team win because no one's going to see me and I'm wasting my time and my efforts and I'm going to fall through the cracks. I'm never going to reach my dreams. And I argue just the opposite. Like that investment of going through the shit, going through that pain, and you come on the other side, man, you have so much more optionality. It's just the opposite.
Shane, I couldn't agree with you more. And don't you think, I've been thinking about this a lot, like one aspect of great leaders, and we haven't like hit on it, but you just did, is like they make everybody feel seen, right? Like, and even if it's like from testing them, right? Like to go to your point, like demanding or supportive, Ravi, like both are like, you feel seen either way, right? Like even when you're pushed, you matter. And this is like uh, is it the Frank Blake, my guy from Home Depot, my
Home
guy, like
Depot.
the reverse pyramid, my guy, like I'm fascinated by this, but like, again, the handwritten letters and the stories of the people and employees on the front line that like he would share to everybody. Like, again, it was like that exact same thing you're talking about, Shane. Like, I see you, like I see these great deeds that you think go unnoticed. And I think there's so much power in that. And I think you're spot on.
But I do think that to your point, though, Shane, you have to command that. Like, yeah, the leader should make sure people feel seen for sure, whether it's through inspecting their work or demanding or being supportive. But the glue guy, glue person, glue gal, they need to have faith that it'll happen. Because that's the thing you had, right? Like, it wasn't happening for you. And you're like, you know what? If I just keep doing the right stuff, it'll happen. And then Hubie comes and like it changes, right? But you do, even if you're not being seen, you have to believe. You know what I'm saying? You have to keep that faith.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, one
that.
more thing. And I think, Shane, you talk about this a lot too, and kind of the power of teammates, but like teammates can see each other too, right? And recognize it. And I think so often like there is this, you don't do it. You don't say the thing, like you just hold back. I got, and in life and in general, but certainly on a team, like the power of that, right? When you, like, I wish I'd have said it to Blake Costanzo, right? Like, but I didn't, I just didn't have the guts.
But Shane, it feels like the speaking of scene though, I know we have the Memphis part, but I do feel like the Houston thing feels like a moment of like revelation of like people, right? Like people really like getting you, you know?
Yeah. Well, thank God for Michael Lewis. Michael Lewis really changed my life. 2009, wrote an article called The No Stat All-Star. He followed me around for, 7, 8, 9 months and was trying to distill like how I did what I did. For those who don't know me and are huge Instacart fans, only here because of Ravi. I had a 13-year NBA career and I averaged like 8 points a game. Like, it wasn't like tremendous stats, 5 rebounds. All right. But every team I ever played on won at a super high level. And actually, when I was on the court, my teams played at a championship level versus when I was off the court. And Michael Lewis thought this was super compelling because, like, I was not super athletic. I was not flashy. I had no swag, didn't score a lot of points. Found this fascinating and wanted to tell the story of the No Stat All-Star. And this is kind of the birth of Glue Guys many, many, many years ago. And he chronicles exactly what I did, sort of from the inside and from the outside, externally, internally, to influence team dynamics to help my teammates play well. And so, even though I averaged 3 points or 3 rebounds a game for the Miami Heat when I was on the floor, my teams rebounded better than when I was off the floor, right? Even though I didn't score that many points, my teams outscored the other team when I was on the floor versus when I was on the bench. And so, for the first time, people said, "No, Battier is actually pretty good." And so it was a really weird phenomenon, Ravi. We talk about it. I went from being like, I guess maybe an overrated player in college because people didn't think I was going to be that good. And I had an NBA GM say, no, he'll be the biggest bust in the 2001 NBA draft, even though I was National Player of the Year. So going from overrated to being a underrated player, thanks to Michael Lewis, which in turn probably made me an overrated player by the end of my career. And then now my legacy, 10 years after I retired is probably, he was a valued player. All right. He's probably a valued player. So I think I found the right, but like I've had a very interesting career arc to go from overrated to underrated, overrated to rated. Thanks to Michael Lewis.
And this all takes place. This is in Houston.
Yep.
And at this point, had you already kind of had analytics started, which was kind of took place in Houston, right? Like with the Rockets, had that already taken part of your game? Like, had you already adopted that from a defensive standpoint?
No. Look, I just did what I did. And it wasn't until I, talked to our boy Sam Hinkie and Daryl Morey that said, no, actually, like the things that you do that no one will ever know that you do have tremendous value. Like I was like in the 99th percentile of like running back on defense. Okay. So when a shot goes up, you have two choices. You can go for the offensive rebound or you can run back and prevent a fast break on the other team. And so like, I was like pretty good offensive rebounder, but like I was really, really good at like getting back and stopping fast breaks. Well, that prevention like saved our team, like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 points a game. Right. In the box score, you would never, ever know that I did that.
Yeah. And what's the average point differential in an NBA game, Shane? Ish?
Well, it's 0. That all has to average out. But
my point is like a typical NBA game is like pretty close.
Usually a typical game is decided by 3 or 4 points.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's like the difference in a game, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and so Daryl Morey and Sam Hinkie taught me like all these like intangible plays that are not measured by the box score. All right. You know why the box score exists in football and in basketball and any sport? You know why it exists? Because it's the only way to explain how the game is played by easily measurable things. Okay. They measure yards passing because you can count, the ball went 10 yards and it's 10 yards passing, right? They can measure tackles because it's a tackle, right? Very, very difficult to measure the amount of space you're creating by sending a man in motion, right? But there is a value 100% associated with putting the guy in motion, right? Or, rotating the defense. There's a value to that, right? And so in basketball, no different. A loose ball has a value. Running back on defense has a value, right? Just not turning the ball over has a value. And so like all these things that were not covered in the box score, I was like the 95th to 100 percentile in the NBA. And I saved my team and created value for my teams at like this crazy, crazy rate. And like, that's why Daryl traded for me because I did all these things. I helped my team win and I had a very low salary. And so I was like the ultimate worker, cheap labor that was very, very productive. And so, look, I sat with Daryl and Sam and they taught me the ways of data and they taught me a different way to look at the game of basketball. And all of a sudden I looked at basketball, not as of a game of made shots and missed shots, which most people look at basketball, but just a collage, a portfolio of all the different ways that you can create value and take away value from your opponent. And if you do, if you make good plays, guess what? You accrue more value for your team. If you make bad plays, you take away value from your team. And so it's no different than running a business. So I became obsessed with like all the edges. I could pick up just little basis points here and there that all add up. That's what I did naturally. But for the first time being in Houston in the data analytics scene, it could be explained with data.
Alex, when we were in Vegas, not the first time you were there, but the second time you were there with us, actually. But I was sitting at a blackjack table with Shane, right? And we're sitting there, and there's like 4 or 5 of us playing, and like some string of aces comes out, okay? Like just a ton. And the rest of us are like, oh, this sucks. Like, man, a lot of aces are going. Shane stops playing. He sits at the table, and he takes his chips away. And we're like, what are you doing? He's like, the only way you can win in blackjack is if you, like the ace is a really critical card. And now we don't have any aces in the deck. There's been a disproportionate amount that have come out and like, I'm not playing. We're like, what do you mean you're not playing? And he sat out the rest of the shoe. So this guy's like analytics, it extends, even now at the blackjack table. Like he's like, no, like I don't have this edge. Like I'm not playing. It was crazy. Like you just like took the chips off the table.
Remember, this is the guy that gave us the Google score info. Ravi, remember.
This is true. This is true.
But Shane, this has taken over the NBA, right? Like this is everywhere now.
Yeah.
And you're to blame.
I'm not to blame.
It's your fault.
You're always, players are always going to do whatever they can do to get an edge, right? Legally, right? And all data is you're just trying to mitigate your risk.
And which numbers have value, right? Like what really has value, right? And so long, people have just been looking at points per game and things like that, but there's all these other stats.
If you took the most telling is like a scatter plot of all the shots taken. If you do take on like the average, like all the shots taken in the NBA in the 2001 season, okay, there'd be a lot of dots, at the rim, but they'd be pretty well dispersed, right? Some 3-pointers, but not a ton. Maybe a lot of shots at the elbows and long jumpers. If you look at a shot chart of the 2024 season, it is very, very, very concentrated rim shots and 3-pointers.
Yeah.
Literally, the long 2-point jumper has been taken out of the game. Why? It is the hardest shot to make. And people say, no, everybody makes it. No. The way you have to look at it is like the average possession in the NBA, the score is at about 50% clip, right? So every time a team comes down, on average, they're going to score a point, okay? The average long 2-point jumper that's from 20 feet, off the bounce, that's like a 40% shot, okay? So every time someone takes that shot, it's only worth 0.8 points, right? So you're losing 0.2 of a point every single time, 200 bips every single time you take that shot. All right, you do that enough, you're going to lose. And you can't make up that efficiency anywhere else on the court at a high enough level to make up for those bad shots, right? And it's no different than blackjack. That's how I learned. Like Sam and Daryl taught me, like blackjack, if you get an ace shown to you, you got to split that every single time. And why? Does that guarantee you a win? No. But if you split those aces over the course of a shoe, over the course of a session, time and time again, it gives you the best chance of winning. And so in sports and really in life, you just want to put yourself in the right position to have success. And you have to be willing to understand the role of randomness and live with the results, knowing that, the environmental factors were pure. And that's all I did in basketball, whether it's Gordon, Kobe Bryant, Carmelo Anthony, playing basketball, just give myself the best chance to win and disassociate myself from the result.
Hey, Ravi, have you had Shane over to the Gupta School to do a blackjack lesson with the boys? Maybe next time, put it on the docket.
That's right. Uncle Shane did do a session, with the Gupta boys last year, but he has not done a blackjack session, which I think they would really enjoy. I do think that there is a risk of the Gupta children becoming gambling addicts, though, so I'm a little nervous to introduce this to them.
It's risk assessing, guys. It's about risk assessment. It's not gambling. It's learning to deal with risk. That is a skill that we could never be too good at.
Shane, one thing we've talked even on the podcast about some of the Miami, stories and the evolution and some of those stories. One thing I've never asked you is like, did you think LeBron was going to be as good as he was when you went there? Because you talk about maximizing the chances of winning all that stuff. Like, were you surprised by how good he was? Did you already know from your studies? Like, how was he compared to what you expected?
You have an idea of who a guy is because you play against him, but you don't know what makes the great players great, how they react under stress. Right? That's a separation, and so you don't know that until you may play him in a playoff series and hits a big shot, or whatever. But until you see a guy or a gal, operate under extreme stress where the consequences are real, that's when you really know somebody. And so I was surprised, positively surprised by how great LeBron was, by his ability to handle the scrutiny and the pressure that he was under. And so I knew he was under a lot of pressure and a lot of eyeballs. When you're with him, you don't understand, man, this guy is always being watched. Always. And every move he makes is being critiqued, criticized, praised, everything. And he still delivered, man. He still, when I was there, at least, he always delivered. And, that's what they say about MJ, same thing. And so I learned, first of all, LeBron's an amazing teammate, but the pressure he was under to still execute and be great is why I respect him. More than anybody who's played this game.
Yeah.
Was Miami already, when you got there? I mean, this was the start of the Miami culture, right? Like it had, you guys established it. Or was it already in place?
Oh, Pat Riley and Spo had, the culture was in place.
But they hadn't won.
No,
like that.
And that's why I went there. Like, if they would have beat Dallas that first year, there's no way I'm going to Dallas. I'm not, I was ring chasing, but I wasn't championship chasing.
Yeah.
I would have gone to San Antonio, full stop. But since they lost to Dallas, selfishly, I said, you know what? They're going to win a championship, and they're going to win a championship soon. And, I might be able to time it where if I go, I get some of the credit for going to be the difference maker, right? So I was playing the odds, and it worked out. So two championships later, it was an amazing team. The culture was amazing. The cool thing about the locker room, and we had dudes, Hall of Famers up and down the locker room, but like there was no bullshit. We were there to win and be legendary. And no one had time for pettiness about shots or roll or this. Hey, we bust each other's balls, and it wasn't always champagne and roses. But the overarching theme was we're here to create a historic team, and like it was such an unbelievably worthy ride.
Mission orientation. I take that one as like the peak basketball mission orientation whenever we go through the trust mission framework, someday. That to me is like peak of that.
And every guy could finish the mile.
Yeah. And then so
that helped.
We had weight and body fat every week. So Pat Riley loves, to be a world-class champion. It means to be in world-class physically peak shape. And so every week, our strength coach, Bill Fran, will come out with the calipers, very scientific. And he'd come pinch your fat, and he would tell you how much your body fat was, and not scientific at all, but no one got fined, but he would, you get a stern, like talking to tisk, 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 if your body fat was like a couple points higher than it was last week. But that, again, that's the measure of like, you have to find data sets that prove like you're working. And that's a data point. They're like, you take conditioning serious enough to be skinny and thin and a world-class athlete, which I respect.
Shaq tells this story about when he's in Miami about how he and Antoine Walker used to basically like oil themselves up as much as possible so that the calipers wouldn't because he was like definitely above the body fat rules. And I'm like, it's just this is a grown man. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And he's like, oh shit, street coach is coming.
Yeah, it's true. That's a real story.
Yeah. Shane, this was awesome. I think we did pretty well. Like
we could keep
getting
going.
rid of the corporate speech. We might have to do a part 2 to the brother Battier story.
Well, I've been very, very lucky to have been on an amazing ride. And while I had the irrational confidence that this is going to happen, I know how lucky I was. To stay healthy, minus the broken leg in 7th grade, but to have amazing people on my journey that I learned from, that made me better. And I think this podcast is a culmination of all those lessons, and that's why I'm excited to be here with my friends to share these lessons and these maxims to help our friends who want to be glue guys and gals.
That was awesome. Super fun.
I appreciate you guys.
Hey.